Hello and welcome to the Outsourcing Edge. Today we have the very lovely Jackie, who was going to have a chat to us about her experiences finding a job and now working remotely with a UK company. Hello, Jackie, how are you?
Very well, thanks, and you.
Very well, thank you, my dear. And thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it because I know you're kept very busy in your current job, so your time's even more precious. So, just to help everybody understand who you are and what you do, tell us a little bit of an overview of who you are and what you do.
Perfect, no problem. I'm Jackie. I'm based in Johannesburg, and I form a remote support role to the two managing directors and our property team. I manage tenancies. I do a bit of business development. I do a lot of implementing processes, streamlining things. So a bit of everything, which is really fun.
It sounds amazing. And we'll come on to a bit more of that as we go along. But tell me a little bit about what you were doing before you started working for this particular company, before we came across each other.
I would say the bulk of my career, I was working in a key account management and sales management role for a furniture manufacturer based in Cape Town. And I worked remotely in Johannesburg from 2020 and actually had a colleague work from my home and all of that. I did initially come from a remote work background as well, but basically in business development, administrative support, research, relationship building is basically majority of my career is made up of that.
Oh, fantastic. And was this, have you always been, how often have you worked in a remote setting or an office setting? Has it always been one or the other?
I would say early in my career it was more on site in offices. And basically, pre COVID, the company that I was working for sold their Johannesburg office, and organically, it just so happened that by the time COVID hit, I was already working remotely. And basically, since 2020, I've been solely in remote roles.
Gosh, that was really lucky for your employer, that the ex-employer, that they got ahead of the curve there, because so many businesses had that struggle through COVID.
Absolutely. The property sold in February, and I think it was the 21st of March that we went into lockdown. So it did happen just at the right time.
Wow, lucky them, lucky them. So yes, you've been in your current position now for, remind me, how long?
About 9 months now.
Wow, that's gone fast. That's
I
gone
know
fast.
time flies.
So tell us a little bit about your current job.
Perfect. So we work in the social housing sector, like Kiara in your previous podcast. So I work for Ollie's other company where we more do the council partnerships, doing supported accommodation in shared accommodation, self-contained for vulnerable communities, individuals facing homelessness. And so it's anywhere from dealing with social workers and referrals with complex needs to dealing with property maintenance issues, terminations for badly behaved tenants, things like that. So quite a large spectrum of things across the board in the social housing.
It sounds really diverse. It sounds like every day is a different day.
Absolutely, I think that's what I love about it so much is that there's constant challenges and I'm learning all the time, new things. You always think, oh, I've heard it all, and and you come into a new situation.
And how many properties are you looking after?
So at the moment, I would say there's about 40, just over 40 properties, and I would say about 70 tenancies that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis and growing. We are taking on new contracts and things like that, so constantly adding more to the portfolio.
That's going to keep you very busy. That's going to keep you on your toes for a while, I'd have thought. But yeah, so what's it like working remotely compared to working in office?
I would say the quality of life for me improved because previously any sort of job that I took, I lived quite far from the offices, and so even just that commute, the daily commute, an hour and a half before you start your 8 hour day and an hour and a half afterwards, so that additional 3 hours of basically working, um, and, sort of dealing with traffic and all sorts of situations on the road that appear. So I would say, in terms of the commute, the quality of life, having that time in the mornings, the time in the evenings to do what I want to do has really, really been such a fulfilling part of remote work. And also just the flexibility of time, of integrating work into my life. If I want to go work from a coffee shop, if I want to, if I'm traveling, I'm often, working while I'm traveling. And I don't mind that at all, because, it's such a pleasure to be able to do what you love, to add value, and from anywhere in the world, which is just amazing.
No, that really is fantastic. And what, have you been to any places at all while you've been working? What travels have you done so
So yes, so locally, during my time with Living Concepts, actually, when I first started out, I was doing all my training and everything from the South Coast in South Africa. So I had a beautiful view while, learning all the accounting systems and things like that, which was really nice. And then also from a sort of game reserve, a safari location outside of Johannesburg as well, sitting by the pool working.
fantastic? I want your life. Can we swap? No, it sounds absolutely ideal. And what do you think is the difference between working for an international company and a local company?
I would say you grow a lot in your career, understanding how things are done globally, how things compared to, I feel like sometimes in South African companies or any local company, you're sort of stuck to policies and things like that, that are a bit more traditional. And I've found, since working for international companies, that it's really opened my mind to problem solving differently, to being open to new technologies, to being open to new personalities and senses of humor and all of that. So it's quite a lovely privilege to have.
What a lovely way of describing it. And one of the things that our employers always wonder is cultural differences, because obviously we've got same language, similar time zones. There's a lot of similarities between the UK and South Africa, but there's also a vast array of differences. From your perspective, what have been the sort of any challenges in that regard?
I think, especially speaking with the tenants, it would be the terminologies for different things. So, a jumper instead of a hoodie, trousers instead of pants, things like that, that I've sort of now it's become instinctual. But previously, it took me a while to adjust to, I would say to them, oh, I'm having chips for lunch. I felt like chippies for lunch. And they're like, what's chippies? I was like, oh, fries, like fish and chips, chippies. So
There's some very
I'm just
subtle
becoming very
differences.
aware of what I say, and, is it going to make sense?
And tell me, out of work, do you keep those cultural differences, or do you swap back?
I have. I have noticed them slipping into my day-to-day conversation, and friends will catch me out and be like, "Steaming," like, who uses the word steaming? But there was a tenant that was steaming, and, it's like, oh, they were under the influence of alcohol. So then.
I love that. I love that. Have you got, that's brilliant. Have you got any other examples like that? Because that's classic.
Um, I think what's interesting for me is I can have really serious conversations with sort of framework supporters, or, I'll be on like a panel for the NHS for mental health support for a tenant, and at the end to be like, cheers. And like, cheers to us is like very informal sort of thing. And, to have this sort of well esteemed person just be like, cheers, mate, after the call. I'm still getting used to that.
I'm sure there'll be ways of keeping you on your toes with British humour and British anacronyms for many years to come. Sorry, my dog's trying to jump in here. But no, that sounds fantastic. Now, do you think you'd ever go back to working in a national firm again, or would you always want to stay internationally?
I think internationally, I love South Africa and I love the South African companies, but I do feel that there's just a lot more learning, new technologies, training, things like that. From my experience, I learn and grasp a lot more in remote roles for international companies than sort of you sort of feel stagnant, like you're not learning anything new in a national company.
I think the UK is very forward thinking in terms of AI and tech, which I'm discovering isn't necessarily the case in South Africa. Is that
Yes, absolutely. I think it's, I mean, LinkedIn, for example, in the UK is quite a largely used, popular platform. South Africans are just starting to understand it and take advantage of the amazing platform that it is. And so I do feel we're also getting a lot more AI prompt engineer jobs coming up, things like that. So we're definitely moving in the right direction, but it's still early days in terms of that.
Yes, I think it is. Super. Well, Jackie, thank you so much for sharing your wonderful story with us and hearing all about your incredible journey and learning about wonderful phrases like steaming. That's going to tickle me for some time. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. So thank you so much for your time. And
Thank you so much for having me.
for everybody here, thank you so much. And please share, like, and share the video. And look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Outsourcing Edge. Thank you so much.